There is growing backlash today for comments Donald Trump made last week at a rally in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina.
The Washington Post writes an article, and one of the paragraphs, it says, and by the way, this was right after September 11th. This was September 18th. And right after, sort of an amazing thing, right after a couple of good paragraphs, and it's talking about northern New Jersey, draws the prober's eye, written by a nice reporter. Now the poor guy, you got to see this guy. Oh, I don't know what I said. I don't remember. He's going like, I don't remember. Oh, maybe that's what I said. This is 14 years ago. They didn't do a retraction.
A new Washington Post opinion piece titled "Donald Trump is a Bigot and a Racist" goes after the Republican frontrunner for that soundbite you just heard and many of Trump's past actions and comments. Dana Milbank is the author of that piece. He joins us now from Washington. So, Dana, let me just ask you point blank, because this article is different in that you are not talking about the behavior being bigoted, the actions being bigoted. You're saying Donald Trump is a bigot and a racist.
I am, and that's not something I had said before. I'd been critical at various times when he'd talk about the rapists being sent in from Mexico, or when he was talking about the Muslims celebrating on 9/11, or he wouldn't correct the guy at the rally who says Obama is a Muslim and Muslims are a problem in America, and on and on. And finally, with my former colleague Serge Kovaleski last week, you get to some point when it's not just a bigoted action or a racist action. You don't know what is in the man's heart. Of course, we don't know what's in the man's heart. But when you establish a pattern like this over a very long period of time, and frankly, it's going back a quarter century, I think you need to call the man what he is, and he is a racist and he is a bigot.
All right, so Dana, that's your view. Clearly, though, when you look at the polls, Donald Trump has remained in the lead here. And we're not just talking about one poll, obviously. As you well know, there were many people, even within the Republican establishment, who felt that we would only be talking about the summer of Trump. And that here we are, though, in November, looking at that number, not seeing it change all that much. What do you make of that?
Well, look, he's in our latest Washington Post poll. He's at 32% in the Republican field. But there's another way to look at that, and that is he's getting 14% of the support of registered voters nationwide. The vast majority of people in America do not accept what Donald Trump is doing. Now, am I saying every single Donald Trump supporter is a racist or a bigot? No, of course not. But certainly some of them are. You only need to spend a little time in social media to see that. And I think what Donald Trump is appealing to, and the polling backs this up, is it's an older, white, less educated segment of society. These are people who are feeling very anxious and angry about the direction the economy has taken and are feeling they're being left behind in America. Those are the people Donald Trump is speaking up for. Some of them are racist and bigots. Certainly not all of them are.
So, Dana, then, I guess that brings the question up, is the problem really Donald Trump, or is it the ideology that he espouses?
Well, there are always going to be people who espouse this kind of ideology in America. The danger is when you get somebody with a platform like this who becomes a demagogue. That is what's dangerous to the country. And what's particularly dangerous is if people don't speak up and call him out. I think you're finally starting to see some of that among the Republican candidates, John Kasich in particular, Chris Christie. They've really been afraid to call out Donald Trump and say, this is unacceptable. This discourse should not exist in the United States, at least from a mainstream candidate for president. So I think you're starting to see that come about now.
Dana, do you think that the Republican establishment underestimated, though, the depths of voters' fears in this country?
I think they did. I think pretty much everybody did, and Trump is a surprise for that reason. To a lesser extent, Bernie Sanders has captured some of that on the left as well. So I think people realize that there is something very enduring, this anxiety in the public that Donald Trump is speaking to. He is just a very flawed messenger. There's a way to address the anger in the country without turning people against racial minorities, women, Muslims, whatever other scapegoat that Donald Trump is suggesting they seek out.
Dana, I'm curious, what's been the reaction, have you heard, for instance, from the Trump campaign?
I mean, I've heard a lot from Trump supporters, and of course, there's a lot of name calling, which I guess if I'm going to call names, I should expect that to come back at me. But I generally disapprove of name calling, but I think you know, you need to call a spade here.
All right, Dana Milbank, The Washington Post. Dana, thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure.